Good morning. I'd like to briefly introduce Invest in Africa before we move any further. So who are we? Invest in Africa is a private sector non-profit partnership initiative. The reason we call it a partnership initiative is because some partners came together to form Invest in Africa with the objective of driving economic growth and job creation. This we do by catalyzing the growth of SMEs, where we link SMEs to skills. If you look at our three initiatives, we link SMEs to skills, where so far we have trained actually well over 2,500 to date, and we have connected some SMEs to skills in regard to anti-bribery certification. So this anti-bribery certification actually enables you to export seamlessly. Our second initiative is access to markets, where we have built an online technological platform, which we refer to as biashara.now, and we've posted the website there, www.biasharanow.com. You can go on board, see the platform. Here we have registered almost 5,000 SMEs currently in various sectors, in various counties, and we have connected them, and they are able to access tenders and any other market opportunities which are posted onto the platform and by our partners. And so far have awarded contracts worth over 154 million, being in our fourth year, just entering our fourth year of operation. We have also created over 88,000 jobs, because for us, positive impact is really about the number of jobs we are creating, and of course in a COVID year last year, also about the number of jobs we are supporting. How many SMEs are we helping to keep jobs secure? Our third intervention is access to skills, where we have facilitated over 5.8 million finance to our SMEs with our financial partners. So we also have financial partners who are mainly interested in facilitating finance for SMEs, so specializing in SMEs, and as usual, engendering women and youth in this. So our vision is to prosper African economies, and we do this by enabling trade between SMEs and larger corporates or multinationals by enhancing their skills, improving their access to markets through biashara.now, and finally linking them to finance. And we have a target of linking our SMEs to at least 1 billion of contracts by the year 2025. So now introducing this series that we've been having. I know a number of us have been here before, joined our series since last year, maybe attended a masterclass or so, but we may have a couple of people that are new, and therefore would like to talk about this program that we are implementing with Mastercard Foundation. And this is mainly the SME Virtual Toolkit, which we are delivering in Kenya, in Ghana, and in Senegal through 5 main activities. One is virtual masterclasses, where we look at what are the needs of SMEs in terms of enhancing their recovery and business resilience. We build teams, we collaborate with different institutions. Today we are collaborating with the county of Nakuru through one of the CECs. We are CEC members. We are very excited to introduce her in a moment. We have also coaching. Coaching is, in coaching, the SME receives just one-on-one support from a certified ICF coach, that is International Coach Federation, which is a world-class gold level. And the coaching support is mainly to support you to develop and implement practical, very personalized plans for your business, because it's one-on-one. And we also have SME peer-to-peer mentorship sessions, where we bring SMEs to speak on different themes in areas that you'd like to learn more about. Our most recent one was Leading Through a Crisis, where we featured Sarah Karingi, and it was a very well attended and with good feedback session. Our next one is coming up next month, so please be on the lookout for it. And you may attend any of this by expressing your interest to felistas.sang@investinafrica.com. I'm sorry, I understand the network is breaking a bit. I hope it becomes more stable as we proceed. Fourthly, we have our Knowledge Academy. This is just a virtual library that we have put up. It's multilingual. It has English resources, French resources, Portuguese resources, where we have created content through our SME Recovery and Resilience Program. For example, today's session will go up in that virtual library, but we've also looked at credible general resources from all over the globe to help you to anticipate, to forecast, to be able to recover and really build resilience as we come out of this, COVID year. I'm saying come out because we are hopeful that the trend shows we are going to safer and higher grounds. And finally, we have our access to finance activity. This is an exciting investor readiness program to facilitate finance for you. So if you're interested in that, if you're looking for finance, please talk to us by expressing your interest to felistas.sang@investinafrica.com. And at that point, I'd like to stop here and move to the session of the day. Please talk to us if you'd like to know more information. We're just giving very high level information so that we give our speaker maximum time to be with us. So today's session is really about highlighting the key challenges which women in agricultural value chains are encountering or are facing. Would like to also look at what opportunities are there for women in agricultural value chains, and of course to look at some of the efforts and activities that the public and private sectors are already undertaking to support the involvement of women in agricultural value chains. So those are the objectives of the day. Quite excited to introduce the speaker now. And at this moment, it is my absolute pleasure and honor to introduce Dr. Immaculate Maina, who is the Minister for Agriculture, Livestock, Fisheries and Cooperatives, and a member of the Council Executive Committee of Nakuru County. It is known as the County of Unlimited Opportunities. So previously, Dr. Maina has worked as the Director for the Njoro Center for Kenya Agricultural and Livestock Research Organization, and she holds a PhD in agriculture with work experience spanning over 18 years. We are so delighted to have you with us today, Dr. Maina, and we are looking forward to this participation. Just a quick reminder to the team, to all participants, please post your questions, your comments in the meeting chat box. Let's engage our speaker. Let's make the most of the next 1 hour to really find out what are the challenges, what are the opportunities, what are the efforts in place, and how can we plug in. Dr. Maina, karibu sana.
First, let me say thank you so much to Invest Up in Africa and the Masterclass Foundation for inviting me to take part in this very interesting conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, for those that don't know me, my name is Immaculate Maina. I'm the CC in charge of agriculture, as was earlier said. Today's topic is of particular interest to me because that is what I do on a daily basis. And I want to tweak the topic a little bit from what I was given and say that I would like to discuss women in agriculture beyond food security to sustainable food systems. And the reason why I took it like that is because women do a lot. They're not just in agriculture, they're in a whole system. I want to start by mentioning the fact that when we think about agriculture, we think rural spaces many times. And in those rural spaces, we find that most of those people that work in those rural spaces will be the women. You find women in crop production, women in livestock rearing, women in fisheries and aquaculture, women in apiculture, otherwise called beekeeping. These are all places where women are active in the agriculture space. That is at the production level. Moving forward from production level, you'll find women in transport, you'll find women in marketing, in value addition, you'll find women in all manner of spaces along the various value chains that we have. And so when you think about all that women do across the agricultural landscape, we can't just talk about agriculture because agriculture does not work in isolation. Agriculture is a whole system. Agriculture is affected and also affects transportation, also affects telecommunications. Agriculture is about distribution chains. It's about logistics. It's a whole wide system. It's about the environment. It's about our water resources. It's about our land resources. And in all these spaces, women have something they can offer. Women have challenges they face. Women can exploit opportunities in all these spaces. And that's why we need to talk of women not in agriculture, but actually in agri-food system. Ultimately, it is our women who make our meals. So from the land to the fork, you'll find women at various spaces along that value chain. Therefore, when we sit and discuss the issues of challenges that women face, there are many. At the household level, you find that because of the competition for time, women have to juggle between the care industry and production industry. So you have women who have to wake up early to milk cows, who sleep late as they put their children to bed. And therefore, I think at the household level, the great challenge and leisure, that many women in the agricultural space, many women in the rural space are very busy. They spend a lot of time working and very little time for leisure and other activities. And going forward, as they do this work, we also have unique challenges along the value chain. For example, machinery. Most of the machines that are out there in the fields are not necessarily friendly to women in terms of muscle power. You've seen rural folks trying to do, the most interesting for me has been the pressing of oil, where you find very large machines that women must use to be able to press oil, trying to do some value addition. For communities that use oxen to plow, it's not necessarily friendly to women. It's also a heavy tool. For communities that dig with a djembe or use hoes, it's very draining. If you think about livestock keeping, women have to carry heavy loads on their back to feed the livestock. So the whole question of labor expenditure on women at a personal level is a challenge. The whole question of lack of time to rest and have some leisure is a challenge to women. Moving up the value chain, women have then to think about, once you produce, how do you market it? And even before you market it, how do you negotiate for a rightful ownership of the output from production? We've seen it even in public media, where women go through a season producing, is at the end of the season, they do not sell anything, they don't own anything, they don't get the cash out of their labor. So the whole question of power dynamics and negotiation for resources within the household is a whole space that many women struggle with, that they put in the labor but do not necessarily earn the outcome of that labor even in the household landscape. Beyond that, we consider women in the marketplace. After the production has been done, products have to be delivered either to the local cooperatives, the local markets, the regional market, or even to a market outside of the counties and so on and so forth. When you look at what happens beyond the farm, you find that, again, because of competing interests and competing needs, you'll find that it's not every woman who could actively and effectively participate in the market. If there are young children in the house, it will be the husband or a partner or somebody else who will take up the matter of marketing. Even if there are no children that are doing it in the house, many times you find that it is the spouses or other persons who would take up that role. And where women cannot then participate in the market, many of them would be willing to sell their produce at farm gate, whether the price is favorable or not favorable. So immediately we get to the market, the women face also specific challenges, participation, and how that participation can happen for women. And in that space, then, it means that when you look at markets as currently structured, they're not necessarily women. If you look at the whole question of marketing in Kenya, it is very broker driven. Although we have quite a number of women who work as brokers, as agents, and so on and so forth, when you look at the whole landscape, it's still very male dominated. And what does that mean? That means that in terms of marketing, women will also be on the lower end. They'll not necessarily receive the greatest gain out of the labor they're put into whatever value chain they're working in. Beyond the market, when it comes to decision making, when it comes to women sitting around the table to discuss the policies that will affect the whole of the agriculture landscape, there are not too many women sitting on the table. Many of us are listeners. Many of us are, really, we get the news. We're not part of that high-level decision-making. You look at women decision-making, how many of us are sitting at the table to make decisions? How many of us are leading companies? How many of us are doing this and the other? Compared to the male gender, there'll be fewer. So you find that in terms of, if you think about the value chain, you'll find women on those nodes that are heavy on labor, but may not be heavy on the income earned. And so when you talk about women in agriculture, we need to be very sensitive to come up and realize those nodes along the value chain where we can change a few of the dynamics and see how women can benefit better. We think about even the way we pack our produce. Right now, the government is struggling to effect the 50 kilogram bag for potatoes. The current packaging is of 100. So even of materials is not necessarily, it's not even gender friendly in terms of loading or offloading or moving materials from one point to another. And all these are spaces that then cause a lot of trouble. If we want to evaluate specialized equipment, just basic equipment for us to do some value addition. Not many women have the collateral to get the money that they need to set up be done in the area of value addition. Not many women have the even the confidence really to get loans, because if you have a spouse and all that, it's a negotiated process where you either get the loan or what collateral you shall use or what collateral you shall not use. So again, financing into agriculture, if it's not well structured, can also bias against women in agriculture. Because then where collateral is needed, not many women will have that collateral. Where assets are needed, not many women will have those assets. And that becomes another gap in the way that women get involved in the agricultural value chains. Knowledge and information and capacity is another area. Obviously, Kenya is one of those places with a high level of literacy. And many of us are able to get information from radio, from television, adverts about finance, all that. But it comes down to the detail of how you access that finance, the detail of filling out forms, attaching documents, and so on and so forth. I also find that either because of lack of exposure or a lack of confidence, you'll find that many women will shy away from even friendly loans in support of their businesses. They'd rather go to the local chama or person that they know, which of course also has very high interest rates. And I think that could be one of the reasons why you find that many of these facilities that have come up from government to support women in agriculture have not necessarily achieved the outcomes that were intended. I believe that there is need for not only literacy in finances, but also confidence building, trust building for women to be able to take up some of these resources to support the agriculture activities. When you look at the whole landscape, then we are saying that many challenges stand on the way of women. However, I would say that the women are still very resilient. We still have very good examples of excellent business women in the agriculture sector. The resilience of women cannot be underestimated. I think it has to come with the fact that we all must provide for our families at one point or other. So you do everything possible, wherever the challenge is, to be able to do that which you must do, and to be able to give to your family what you must give to your family, however difficult it might be. So first, allow me to applaud the resilience that I see among the women in this nation in their efforts to support their families, in their efforts to make a better living for themselves and those that they love. And therefore, in that case, I think that the business trajectory for women in agriculture should be very closely related to aspects of resilience building, supporting that resilience, building that capacity, building that mental attitude to want to succeed and to overcome the many challenges that we face along the way. It cannot be business as usual. If you really want to make a difference for women in this landscape, it cannot be the traditional things that we've done, that we've seen. We have to think different. We have to think outside of the box, or even create new boxes into which that we must do what we must do. And so where are the opportunities beyond the challenges? I see many opportunities for women, starting right from the household. Depending on whatever circumstances women have within their households, there's always opportunity for us to negotiate our status. It's always opportunity for us to negotiate our circumstances so that members of the family can support our work, starting from time budgeting in the house, sharing chores so that you can release some extra time for yourself to look at what you can do for yourself, encouraging members of the family to support those activities around the house, insisting on support from children and spouses and persons around the household, employing labor where you can afford it, and making sure that you are also able to get that little extra space and time to get some rest, so that we also take care of the challenge of lack of leisure, the challenge of lack of personal time. It's not always easy, it's not always possible, but each one of us must have the presence of mind to want to have a better space around themselves. And we can only do that when we are able to, and as women, we are always able to do that. We are able to encourage others to support us to do better. And I think that is a conversation that needs to happen in the agricultural landscape. It's a conversation that needs to happen whenever women have trouble with managing time and other responsibilities. So basically organizing the household. When we were younger, we went through something called home economics. It's no longer taught. And one of the lessons that we learned in home economics was just home management. How do we manage our time? How do we organize our households? How do we do things around ourselves so that we are more efficient and we can get greater output? I think that's at the basic level. It starts there. In the farm, this opportunity for us as women to work with like-minded persons within groups, within neighborhoods, to deal with some of the aspects that we struggle with. For example, if you come from a place that you're struggling to sell your milk in a long, let's say more than 10 kilometers away, there's opportunity for you to think together as a group, form a cooperative, think about collective action for you to be able to take your milk to a center. And that also releases time and effort to all of us. So I think what I see in the rural landscape is that the need for the way that women can also be more efficient has to do with the way that we do community organizing, the way that we work together within our communities, the way that we are able to loop in everybody who needs to be looped in to support the work that we are doing. In Nakuru County, I found very progressive women in many rural spaces who are doing an excellent job in farming. But you find that some of the most successful persons, especially in the rural space, are those that, one, either have the support of the family to do what they're doing, or two, those have been able to bring community members to think with them in a specific way. And therefore, what I see is in terms of labor management, in terms of resource management, we as women in agriculture must also be very, very clear about who are like-minded to what our vision is, who can support our vision. And then, therefore, for business then, when businesses have to approach women in agriculture, I think it's always good to not just look at the person as an individual, but also look at the ecosystem that they represent and how that ecosystem either helps them to do better or brings them down. Going forward, looking specifically on the matters of mechanization. Mechanization is one aspect that will definitely release a lot of time for women. It's a space that institutions wanting to work with women need to look into very closely. And we've seen in agriculture, we get a lot of mechanization is very male-driven, very male. Even the advertisement for mechanization is also very male-driven. I think it's time that we tweaked it around and try to look at, can we have a feminine kind of aspect into mechanization? Can we have machinery that is not too heavy or too cumbersome that women could use in a friendly way? If that's not possible, then can we look at systems that can support that? And beyond, when you're supporting women in the rural space, it's not just about the machine that is in the farm. It's also about apparatus and equipment in the house. So that, for example, if I have to wash clothes for 6 children or 5 children, that's already 3-4 hours of my time taken away out of agriculture. If I have electricity and there's opportunity for me to get even a washing machine, then it releases my time to go take care of the cows and the other things. So there's a more wholesome view to this, so that we're not just when you think about support, mechanization support to agriculture, it's not just that which happens in the farm. It's also that which releases time for the woman to be able to go to the farm and come back from the farm late, but still take care of the family. Well, the washing machine is just an example, but at the very low level, we're talking about improved GCOs, fireless cookers. All those things release time for women to do better in the agriculture space, so that if I make my rice or my ugali at 4 p.m., I still have an hour to do my milking when my ugali sits in the fireless cooker as I do my milking in the evening. So these are small things that I think, when looked at wholesome, at a global level, can actually support women to do more and do better in what they do. There's also the whole question of agriculture finance. When we do finance into agriculture landscape, we also find that some of the financing can also be very punitive to the women. So that, for example, if I get myself a loan of 300 shillings to raise chickens, you cannot start calculating my interest next month. The chickens I'm still feeding, I'm still putting a lot of money into raising those hens. So I think the whole question of structuring of financial support to women in agriculture needs to be thought of very carefully, so that then, depending on the value chain that I'm in, you actually give me some sort of looking at the profitability. Banks and other financial institutions need to look at how profitable is it then to give loans to women at a particular time, and how much grace period they need to give them before they start repaying. And I think that's one of the reasons we note that there isn't too much attraction by financial institutions into lending into agriculture. But on the other hand, we've also, in conversations with the financial aid institutions, they also say that women are very good at repaying their loans. So why the contradiction? Why would you have low inputs into lending into agriculture, but at the same that these money lent to? So I think counts as in which women to bring together, therefore support women better in that area. When you think about the marketing space for many women is not a friend. It is in the Kenyan system is highly controversial. In some markets, it's also very cartel-driven, so to say. And of course, that creates spaces for rent seeking and other outcomes that may not be friendly to women in business. And therefore, at a policy level, I think it's important for governments, including persons like ourselves who are in government, to think about how can we make markets more accessible, more available to women? Do we take them closer home? Do we reorganize? How then can women access this market better? I know currently many women, of course, are able to access markets, but they look at the numbers compared to the male gender, it's still very low. So the whole question of organizing is another aspect that then goes into creating opportunities for women to think, how can we organize ourselves to be able to get into markets? How can we, as women, open spaces for ourselves within markets, other than just being called Mama Mboga or being at the tail end of the whole value chain? Can we organize? Can we deliver higher quality products? Can we be more compliant with market systems? Are we able to go out there and make negotiations? And so another aspect in support women in agriculture is the whole question of negotiating and lobbying. Not many women are able to negotiate contracts. Not many women have the confidence to be able to lobby for certain things. I think the whole space there where persons wanting to support businesses can come in to support women with skills, soft skills in negotiation, soft skills in lobbying, so that they can do better even in the market landscape. I see opportunities for women across all the nodes along all the value chains. As long as these nodes and value chains are well articulated and are organized, I believe that for many of us as women, we are averse to chaos. And so when a value chain is very disorganized or has aspects in which you feel not confident of your very hard-earned investment, then you're most likely not able to join that value chain. And so the whole question of value chain organization, so that if you're an investor and you want to invest in a value chain, can we first think about how is this value chain organized? How is this value chain, how can it be better organized? And then along the way, then you identify specific areas and specific nodes where you think women may have an upper hand or where they have a chance to survive better, and especially where these value chains are already well established. From research and research papers that we've read, it's clear that as value chains become more profitable, you have less involvement of women as value chains become more profitable. That means that as you get more organized and get more profitable, there has to be targeted and very specific efforts to protect that which the women have gained along that value chain. Otherwise, they're going to lose it. On matters of knowledge, information, and capacity building, many of you may have attended many workshops or trainings are happening. But you know that in terms of participation, you find that you find bias against women in many of these training sessions. I think it's time that we specifically, when organizers of conferences for knowledge, information, and capacity building, or when they're making the invitees, I think it's important that persons are intentional in wanting to bring more women to learn, so that if you're organizing a 30-person meeting, you might want to say that unless you achieve 50% women participation, then I'm not funding. That will make people to be intentional about what they're doing, to be intentional about how they're doing their invitations, so that women are not often left out in that conversation. Obviously, we realize that if a choice has to be done at home with the young children against who's going to attend a conference, the women will be left at home taking care of the kids, as the men and other people may go to attend that conference. Therefore, the whole question of making women participate out of the house is critical and may include going as far as providing nanny services when child take care of my child. Definitely not that different. For persons who have gone for some of these international meetings, find that there are nanny services for women, professional women with young children. That is not a common thing among, even as well locally. It's not a common thing for us when we organize meetings to want to make it comfortable for women to bring their kids or their nannies along to be able and take care of them as part of budgeting for such a meeting, so that women can be able to participate. So the sensitivity that business actors have towards the uniqueness of the situation of the woman in the agriculture subsector can be improved. I don't think we've reached where we should reach. There is need for us to do more and do better in that space. So again, looking at all this, then you also see opportunities. So if I'm doing a conference and I have nanny services, I'm already thinking about an opportunity for a nanny to come and babysit. So basically what I'm trying to say is every time we as investors in the agriculture sector actually sit down and critique what you're doing, you'll always see an opening for women to do better in that space. And therefore, I think the challenge here is not to give prescriptions, but really to challenge us to think different and to want to involve women in a different way and not be traditional, from right away from budgeting to implementation of the programs that we are doing. When, for example, you want to a certain area and you're inviting women from the meeting, I find that because they have from their rural areas, from their known spaces to high level. Think that investors in the agricultural landscape, investors want to invest in women-led value chains or in women-led value chains, should be in terms of critiquing what's for women, what should not work for women, and how we can do better in support of women. As I think about the policy environment, I want to say from a government perspective, the whole question of women in agriculture has been articulated in many spaces, including specific funds being done for women and encourage women to take up this money. But like I said earlier, we haven't dealt with the root cause of the lack of funds going out to the women. And that has to do with our mental, it's a mental space where you're confident to take the loan, you're confident you can protect that money and use it for the purposes that you wanted to use it for without too much destabilization, maybe from members of the family and all that. Hardly is that ever addressed as we think about investing in women. And therefore, I would say that from a policy perspective, we've done well in articulating issues, but the detail, we say the devil lies in the detail of how then that money is moved from point A to point B, how we ring fence that money so that the idea that the woman's hand is protected, that has not been worked out. Therefore, if I go to the Women Fund and get myself 200,000 shillings to set up a chicken business, that money will be, if I don't, depending on the power dynamics in the home, it can always go to Mzez Mjengo. So what happens to me and what happens to repayment of the loan? Therefore, I think that detail really has not been worked in the way that funds are used to support women in agriculture. I think more can be done. I think there's a whole space in terms of again, negotiation, lobbying, power dynamics, in terms of ring fencing, making sure that what a woman are protected and taken care of, and also the opportunity for redress in the event that a person is not comfortable the way that decisions are taken. I think in terms of the landscape, we've seen very good support, especially where we have mixed groups of men and women. Where men have come in to support women business, we've seen a lot of support, especially around cooperative societies. We've seen women progress very quickly. We've seen women make a lot of difference. And therefore, then the whole question of having the male gender around a woman in agriculture, supporting her, is another conversation that could also support investments in agriculture for women. So that when you call a meeting, let's say you want to put money into women in a particular space, don't call, I think it's not wise to call the women on their own. Let the women come with their husbands. Let us go through the whole process of what this fund is about, or where their husbands are available, their spouses, or whatever male relative they have around them. So that then we don't have a lot of gender disparity in the way as we move on with the work that we do, and you don't have a lot of negativity in supporting women to do what they want to do. I think that at the county level, we've had opportunities where we have brought in, when we wanted to invest in a particular community, we did not invite only the women. We invited women and whoever significant male relative they have, whether it's a father or a husband or a son, to come and listen in. And where we have had a buy-in, it has become very profitable, it has become very good, and we have less of gender disparities and gender issues happening in the family. And I found that very useful. So again, investing in women in agriculture does not necessarily mean leaving out the men. It actually means encouraging the men as much as possible to support and grow the ideas that the women have. And that way there will be support, there'll be supporting ideas, and of course the general part and care. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maina. Some rich nuggets today. We have a number of questions, but really, before we get to that point, very enlightening. Some of these challenges that you have brought up are challenges that may not even seem obvious, to many people. What you're talking about, just negotiation power in the house alone, beginning right there, things about heavy machinery, and machinery being really designed mainly for men. And I saw a very interesting comment, if I could quickly read it. They completely agree with you that many of this machinery is actually based on masculine design. And fortunately, Captain Mini Tractors provides affordable tractors which have a feminine touch. So some of these challenges that you brought up, Dr. Maina, are really challenges which may not be quite obvious, all the way from losing time in the household because naturally we tend to be the ones to take care, all the way from just being unable to access finance because of lack of confidence. And very interesting that you bring out that indeed, investing in women means also bringing the men on board to ensure that they're supporting these ideas, and that approach tends to be more successful than if you were to choose to leave out the men and focus on the women only. We have a question, and I think this is related to the point that you brought out on the challenge of women to access capacity building workshop opportunities. And Antoinette Sala is asking, for example, in the Kenya situation, what specifically is the government doing for women to access training in agricultural financial management? So to improve their access to finance, what are some of the interventions that are in place to empower women in terms of capacity building workshops or whatever that may be? Welcome, Dr. Maina.
Thank you. Like I said earlier, our government is very progressive on the space of women, not just women in agriculture, but also women in agribusiness and women just in business, women in SMEs and so on. If you go back to the counties that you belong to, you'll find out that there's a director of SME. There'll be a director of the Women Fund, the WESO Fund. You'll find that government has put in lots of money, even national government, to make sure that women are successful in the spaces that they work in. Well, that may be the case. The challenge is access, availability, and confidence to be able to take up this. And therefore, many of us, even sitting here, have had an opportunity as in your counties, just to discuss opportunities. How many of us have had a chance to fill in the forms to apply for funding? Well, we not need it, but how many of us know relatives who've done it, or have even guided some of them to do it? So the question here is, first of all, thinking about the persons who may be participating today, obviously, different level in terms of your, let's say, your levels of exposure, your ability to negotiate, and so on and so forth. But within our networks, we know and we are clear. Straightforward is fill up a form, go home and tell the husband, you know what, I need to take out 100,000 shillings today for a business that I want to start tomorrow. There is the whole question of confidence, like I said earlier. There's a whole question of within the household dynamics. The whole question of attitudes towards risk of failure of business and so on and so forth. Therefore, I would say that the government has done what it's done. What may be the missing link is information to some of these funds, the capacity to do this and so on. But however, when women have joined into groups, the women have then this training happens. There is no government program that works with the individual farmers or individual women from home, but when you walk into these spaces or women are organizing, then easily can access kind of training and capacity building. But like I said earlier, how is the structure of the training done? How many of us as persons who offer training have a budget? Like how many of us budget for the pads when women come into these meetings? How many of us, the detail of being a woman is not usually articulated in the matters around capacity building. It's important for us to think about these matters as we go forward. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for that, Dr. Maina. We've all heard it that the government has put in place a number of interventions, but sometimes to access is better not to see yourself as an individual. And I think the last point by Dr. Maina about when we are evaluating the kind of needs women in agribusiness have, the kind of support that we need to design for them, then we need to look at the whole ecosystem to evaluate it as a whole. So therefore, associate yourself with a group, and then you'll be able to access the many opportunities that are there for capacity building. As individually, it may not be so possible unless, of course, you can be able to tap into the sessions like what Invest in Africa is hosting today with Dr. Maina. There's another question here, Daktari, and this is from Teresa. And Teresa grows maize commercially in Western Kenya. It has been largely unprofitable over the years as the farm implements have become expensive. And now she's really pondering which is the best agricultural value chain for women, especially in Western Kenya. And do you think, or rather, would you advise that you stop farming maize altogether? That is from Teresa.
Thank you, Teresa. I think that's a very valid question. We all know that our environment is very varied. We will succeed once we understand our environment and appreciate the limits and the opportunities within it. Teresa, I would propose that your first point of call is your local agricultural office, your sub-county agricultural office, what we call the SCAO. I think it's important that you have a sitting with whoever is sitting at the SCAO's office and go through your agroecological zone, the soils that you have, and get an idea of what can locally do better. Beyond that, and I use the word demand because that is what agricultural officers need to do. You need to walk into that office, request, or rather make a demand on the sub-county agricultural officer to support you with a cost-benefit analysis of 5 value chains in your sub-county, in your ward. And then, given that information, you can now look at the returns to your investment and make a final decision. Maize, I know, is a main crop in Western Kenya, but maize also requires several. There are several things that you must consider as you grow your maize. Before you said it, first started growing it, it must have been profitable. Question to you is, have you checked on good soil status? Might you over time have used so much fertilizer or of a specific of your soil have deteriorated, and therefore you're realizing unprofitable outcomes out of your maize production? The place I am right now, I'm actually with a few governors like Hayamba. We are within the meeting right now, and one of the things that about is acidity of soil, the Western region specifically. So that you can increase yield on the farm. It's important to it's also important to think about the seed that you're using. If you really wish to make a change from the top crops that do well in your area, then you can make a decision. And before, as you make that decision, also think about the market so that you don't grow a crop that is so hard to get in the market. Before the final decision, that will be my answer to you.
Dr. Maina, there we have had it that the support is actually available where we are. So please let's reach out and hopefully you can get the assistance that you need with that. I'd like to now point out, and I think this is quite related, Dr. Maina, but I'd like to bring a question from Angela Nyede. And she's requesting if you can speak or touch a bit on extension officers, either in your county of Nakuru or at national level. Where are these extension officers? What is their contribution towards assisting agribusiness, especially women in business, to improve their production? And her experience is that it has been quite difficult to access them, but she knows they exist and what should be the practice. She's also reiterating that she does believe they are an incredibly important resource in the ground, and they are needed, but we just need to be able to access them as women in agribusiness. Could you please speak briefly about that, extension officers?
Thank you. Thank you so much for the question. It's also a very relevant and important question. Yes, I want to first appreciate the fact that we as counties do not have enough agricultural officers. For a very long time, there has not been any employment of Nakuru, for example. It's a while since we've employed, but I'm happy to report that we are employing now for Nakuru. We just finished our shortlisting. Now, the extension officer is a very important link developing agricultural value chains anywhere in this world. And I agree that it can be difficult to catch them, especially where they're very few or are too busy. Let me allow me to give the example of what we do in Nakuru County. In Nakuru County, we have quite a number of extension officers. There are few, yes, but what we've done is that we have insisted and demanded an open door policy on our extension officers, that they should receive every person who comes as much as they can and be able to serve as many people as possible. We've gone on ahead to open what we call a call center, so that a farmer with a question can actually call our call center, and we've given instructions to our officers that get into the call center must be answered. And therefore, I want to believe similar efforts are being done across the counties. But my greatest fear and my experience is that many of us, and especially, allow me to speak plainly and say that many of us well-educated, well-articulated persons do not often have a lot of respect for government officials. And sometimes we disregard, or sometimes we don't think of them as very useful resources. That is from experience. I wish to encourage everyone here present, try it out, walk yourself into the local agriculture officer at the sub-county level, walk yourself into the office of the CC or the director's office and ask specific questions. I want to believe that in many of our counties, however few we are, we still have very good directors, we still have very good chief officers, and the CCs were very keen to support farmers. So while they are few, if you're really well-intentioned and you really want to get the support that you need, you will definitely get it. Beyond what is so a lot of private extension. And therefore, depending on the value chain that you're working with, if you are in potatoes or you're made in dairy, if you look around your network of service providers, around your network of persons in the same value chain, you will definitely get the help that you need. And customers are, if you do a research, or you link up with local education facility, where it's a Department of Agriculture, your local, near a local university, you will definitely get the help that you need. I'm convinced that for many persons in agriculture, there's always this thing of mimi ni mkulima too, but mkulima is a very important person. Many players in the agriculture sector, and especially women, devalue themselves and therefore work against themselves by not having the confidence to demand the services that they need from the people around them. So I'd encourage anybody who has a challenge really to look around them and insist on government support, because it is there. It may be limited, but it is there. If you go looking for it in the right places, you will definitely get it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. There you have it. The support is there. It is available. It may be limited, but it is available. And if we insist, we can actually access it. And again, just reiterating from Dr. Maina, the importance of these extension officers and why we must reach out if we are seeking to really keep improving. And I like the point that you've talked about devaluing ourselves. And you know, I don't think it's just the farmers. This could also just be a women issue that you have to consciously, not just be, I'm just a farmer. You are the reason, you know, all of us are up and going because of the food system. So thanks a lot, Dr. Maina. There's a follow-up question on your comment about utilizing the Uwezo Fund facility that's available there. And Man, I'm not sure if that's the name of the organization or the guest, but Man is asking, could you just address the issue of why government funds tend to target groups and not individual women? Because sometimes she has seen even with the groups there could be frustrations where they'll reach out to perhaps Uwezo Fund, they'll pay for training rooms, and then the person does not show up, which can be quite a frustrating process. And she's even asking, does one have to bribe to get these funds approved, or what really do we have to do? She quite frustrated there. This is in Nairobi specifically, so it may be limited, but I'm sure you can be able to inflect from the experience in Nakuru. What words of encouragement could you offer these participants?
Thank you very much. Let me start with the question of why does government only work with groups? I think it just starts with logistics. That as government, we don't have enough officers to move from one person to another. It's easier when people are together. In terms of, logistics are also costed, logistics are also expensive. And therefore, from a government perspective, the thinking is that it's more efficient and cost effective to work with 50 farmers and have one meeting than visit each of those farmers individually and have 50 meetings. That is one aspect. The other aspect is that the structure of some of this funding is such that the peer mechanism, that when we are in a group, we act as each other's keepers, and therefore we check each other's excesses, so that I'll not take my money and get myself the latest fashion versus doing what we propose to do because my colleagues are watching me and are keeping me in check. So there's a whole question of a peer review mechanism within groups that may not be available when a person is on their own. And we've seen this a lot in the rural space, where women come together to keep chickens, and well, each of them may keep the chickens in their houses. With the peer and the peer pressure ensures that when we say all of us keep 50 chickens, you'll not find a person who diverted the money to something else because they'll feel the pressure of their friends thinking, what happened to this member of our group? So that's another way. So again, the structure, the thinking could be that it is, and also remember, most of these loans do not have collateral. So I think it's also a mechanism of reducing the risk to losses on the monies that are given. Lastly, I want to say that adjustments have been done. My last conversation with a person from Uwezo Fund is that it's come down not to 10 women or so many. The numbers are very minimal. I think it's up to 5 women can actually come together, just to make sure that the original thought remains. I agree with you that it's not always possible. It's not always true that groups are feasible. There are many challenges, but for now, I think to de-risk the loans on individual level, I want to believe that's what the government thinks about a group approach. On the matter of training and officers skipping scheduled trainings. I think I would call it, for lack of a better word, just bad behavior or just non-compliance, because it's expected that when a government official gives a date for a meeting, if they're not available, then they also give apologies in advance so that people can readjust their programs. And therefore, my view on this is that once this happens, like I said earlier, we as women who have a voice, we as women who are able to negotiate, I think it's possible to move to the next level and ask, so who's the supervisor of Uwezo in my ward? Who's the supervisor of Uwezo in my county? And move up the ladder and ask the director, I did this is not happening. We did this is not happening. I think it's within your rights to also raise complaints and provide solutions. It's within our rights to want to get better service. And like I'm saying, the more you demand it from the right places, then the more you will get it. So I'd encourage a man wear uniforms to think about going a step further and talking to whoever is at a higher level in their space in the whole Uwezo Fund system to see whether they can get the support that they need. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Maina. I'm cautious, we are now at 11:15, so in a moment or so, I'll just give you, the floor, the stage to really give any closing remarks or to wrap up this presentation, as with any, further thoughts that could have come to you as we're asking our questions. But as we get there, I'd like to just highlight Antoinette Sala's expectations for today was to have a better understanding of the mechanisms of value chains and the role of African women in agriculture. So if there's something you'd like to highlight in your closing remarks, please do so. But at this moment, I'd like to welcome all our participants to connect with our esteemed speaker of the day, Dr. Immaculate Maina. It has been such a pleasure to have you. You can reach her via email, immaculate.n.maina@gmail.com, or you can reach out through Invest in Africa, especially if you have further questions that you think we can compile, put together and get some responses from Dr. Maina and her team, and we can have this available for you all in our virtual library at biashara.now to ensure that every time you have this best practice quick reference guides, of course, this material will also be available there. There have been a number of questions also directed at Invest in Africa, particularly around our 3 interventions: access to markets, access to skills, and access to finance for you. Please reach out to us. These are our contacts. And we also do work with cottage industries. I've seen someone asking that, so please feel free to reach out to us. I have seen some gratitude extended to Dr. Maina. And before we even get to that point, I'd like to give you the floor now to share any closing remarks or final thoughts on this very important theme of the day, on how we can optimize involvement of women in business, in agricultural value chains, and of course, with a very strong opening comment that, women are actually included throughout the agri-food system, all the way from farm to fork. And we look forward to your final thoughts on this theme. Welcome, Dr. Maina.
My final thoughts on women in agriculture is a thought that goes beyond producing for food security to sustaining agri-food systems, like I said earlier. And in that thought, I'm thinking that women have across all value chains and across all nodes. And what they bring on the table is very clear sustaining systems, right from the household up to the fork, in terms of the work that they do. Men are usually, I think, very careful with the risk take, a very, I would say, very about the outcomes they wish to get that they take. We don't have a lot of space for mistakes. We don't have a lot of space for that. For me, is a serious trend that investments in agriculture, persons working the agricultural landscape, need to focus very seriously on the resilient nature of the way that women do their work, on the support systems that women specifically need I give the example of when you call a conference, kindly include a nanny support system. When you're doing budgets for such conferences, include such as a budgeting item. I also want to say that from a government perspective, I feel that our government has done very well in compared to many other spaces in supporting women. What remains, in my opinion, is the whole space of improving women's capacity, improving women's confidence, working around the mental attitude towards risk and finance for women to want to access these funds and use them for the right thing. I want to say that women have done better where their male colleagues have supported their sons, their husbands, their fathers have supported the work that they do. And therefore, when you are at spaces for women to thrive, you cannot leave them. Important that you to understand what the vision for the women is and to support that vision. You always get a better outcome. As I come to a close, I want to encourage all of us here present and persons within our networks to seek out services within government systems, all counties, and we are all struggling to do this. And we all have our mandates clearly spelled out, are working very hard to support our farming communities and also to put in place the manifestos that our governors have articulated. And therefore, I want to say that let us get the confidence to walk into those offices. Let's not dismiss the role of those officers that will sit. We have very high capacity in government. And to be a bribe, what you want. I will encourage all of us to want to work close officially in the agriculture subsector. And I would say that extension has also been very female. When you look at the number of officers, we have quite a large number of women in extension, including myself. And therefore, you will find like-minded officers in these offices. And of course, if you don't get what you want, like I said, move a notch higher, go to the next level of supervision and demand those services. And I'm sure you'll be helped. So I would say that the agricultural landscape is rich with opportunities for women who want to seek it, who have the resilience to do it, and who are willing to demand what belongs to them. Lastly, I want to say that women will definitely perform better joining with like-minded to be able to bring out the outcomes that they wish. Therefore, you either are in a cooperative, in a CBO, in an association, or just a marketing group. You have a larger voice, you have a larger platform able to get that which you're looking forward to getting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Immaculate Maina, our CEC for Agriculture, Nakuru County, the County of Unlimited Opportunities. Deep gratitude from some of our participants. Teresa says, excellent presentation, Asante Daktari, and Invest in Africa. Judy says, great meeting, deep insights, Hongera. And from Invest in Africa, all our participants and partners, and on behalf of Masterclass Foundation, we want to express our very deep gratitude, first for your availability within a very tight schedule. As you said, you are out of office, traveling, but set aside this time to be with us and to speak to our participants, women in agribusiness. Thank you for your great insights, for your encouragement, for your boost in terms of confidence, and of course for your great commendation of the resilience of business women. And we are really honored to have hosted you. We look forward to other opportunities where we can interact more and share even more of what we have to do. Very good representation as well of what the government is doing, indeed trying to lift and ensure that everybody is able to gain profitability from what they're involving in, giving us the right support in terms of capacity building, extension officers, really each and every aspect. So we have on us a platform for each of us to succeed as women in agribusiness. And thank you so much for taking the time to really break this down for us in terms of the challenges, the opportunities, what is in place, the interventions. Our deep, deep gratitude to you.